Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. So in today's video, I turned myself into a fiery phoenix, and I chose to do this look based upon the fact I had some old paints that were about to expire and I wanted to test old paints against these new brushes that I picked up from Narrative Cosmetics. Are they worth it? Here's my first impression, and let's just get into the footage. To begin, I am contouring my face as I normally would after having blocked out my eyebrows and applying a foundation. I am using several different colors for this contour look: red, orange, and yellow. Using high pigments on these palettes that are matte, I pick my Honey palette from ColourPop and I place that yellow onto the temples and I begin to contour. And the reason why I'm doing the yellow, the orange, and the red for contour is because even if you do not block your eyebrows out and you wanted to do a look that does not have flames to it, I think this is a good way to get flow into the face. I'm thinking fire and how it flows up. And also this is a template that I use for the background of the flames that I'm going to apply later. And here I go in with a Poppy palette from ColourPop and I just start to darken and deepen these looks, contouring my nose more to a point like a beak and carrying that up along the temples and up under the eyebrow bone. At this point I am unsure about how high I'm going to have the flame and the elements onto the face, so I did want there to be color in case the flames were smaller. It would still draw the eye up toward the temple. It represents fire. Every eyeshadow palette that I'm using today, I will link that into the description below. Using my ColourPop Main Squeeze palette, I go in with some red and I continue to deepen the colors and keep layering until I get the desired look. I'm going for that mottled fire look within. That's why you have colors that blend and mix, and when you blend and mix your colors this way, you just get more dimension and more fire-like element. So that is the reason why I chose to do this color and contouring, is because I like to stay mindful about the look that I'm doing, and I also wanted some shadow and depth to be behind the flames. Using a brown eyeliner pencil, I go through and map a shape of my flames on one side of my face, and I go over and do that with the other. And the best thing for this, because our bodies are not symmetrical, we have asymmetry throughout our bodies, is to make the other design on the other side of the face to look like a sister and not a twin. As you can see in this design, I went big and bold, but if you do not want to do that, and also again if you do not want to block your eyebrows out, you can do a look just having it to the eyeshadow in the eyeshadow lid area. But I wanted to show you the contouring and how the contouring places shadow that would be behind these flames. So I continue just to pair the color and the shape as best as I can to the other side, and using a Q-tip because I do have a primer up under all the foundation, I am able to glide my pencil across and lift that color up with a little bit of a Q-tip as to help the design along the way. So just forgive yourself if you have some areas that are not great. You will have a opportunity to tightline with water paints later on. I purchased the Narrative Cosmetics Essentials Brush Pack number 2, and I'm going in with one of their fine point liners and using water-based paints trace over the design that I put into place. Now so far, my first impression is I really did enjoy these brushes, because one thing I did notice, even using older paints and some of the newer paints that I mixed together, is that the color stays onto the brush and it doesn't bleed past where you dip it into the paint, so the bristles keep their shape and they hold paint and it doesn't run. So I did enjoy this part about the brushes, but I am going to do a longer in-depth review once I use these brushes with other products such as adhesives and grease paints and my alcohol paints. I also thought picking a very high contrasting color to use, such as red, because red seems to stain everything. I thought this would be a good opportunity to test these paints, because once you are putting a design in that is contrasting and stark, such as red, it is unforgiving, and you have to go in and do it right the first time, because once you put that red down, it is almost hard to take it off, because you will have a color up underneath, a stain onto the skin. So I thought this was a good opportunity to use these brushes. Now here on an angled brush, I go in and I do a light coat of red paint and I wait for it to dry, because I also wanted to test what the brush stroke would look like in water-based paints, if it would get splotchy. And I was very pleased to see that even one pass of a thin coat, that I did not see any brush strokes into the paint. One thing I did enjoy about this smaller angle brush, I was able to get in smaller areas for details, and also that this brush did not change its shape no matter how hard I pressed onto the skin. And these brushes so far, even having a day for this paint to sit into the red, it did clean very easily and it did not stain. So highly impressed so far. Going in with the orange paint that I had to mix, I mixed red with yellow food coloring and a little bit of white to come up with this orange. Now I chose to use a sponge brush for this, because it was what I was used to and it was such a big element. I did not want to test it against a brush that I was unfamiliar with. And so I go through and I do one layer and let it dry, and then I do a second coat. This is the collar where the feathers are going to be in this look, and I make sure to run this paint up under the neck and onto the jaw area just a little bit, so there's not a stark contrast between the look on the face and up under the neck. Going in with another liner brush, I put in the bottom portion of the feathers. Now at this point I'm just leaving them in a triangle shape, because I'm going to outline those in red and tidy up the lines in this area. But as soon as I get into small details, of course I get a call from my brother, who asked if he could come over and fish, and I told him that I was painting, and he asked me to please be sure that I wasn't in some weird clown makeup look. So thank you for making me laugh, Brohim. I really do appreciate everything you do for me. Using another brush from this collection, I go with the orange paint and I tap in colors around the flames. This is to get that mottled ember fiery looking look within, so that it's not stark and drawn on. It gets to be a little bit cartoonish for me for this look. I was going for that blended fire. How fire you see is got the three colors, and it goes from yellow to orange to red. And since I have the red outline, I take and I tap in this orange until I get the overall look that I'm going for. In Greek mythology, the phoenix is a bird that regenerates and rises from the ashes, often associated with the sun, and that's where you see my design come in, although it is fire for rebirth, but also to represent the wings. So I continue to go through with this color and put that mottled effect, just paint and tap onto the skin. Now it's time to do the feathers onto the neck, and I start at the beginning of the jawline. You want to start from the beginning and go toward the bottom so that these feathers look like they're layered. So here I am going with a rough shape of a feather, and I carry this down onto the neck, and as I go out toward the collarbone and the shoulders area, that the shape gets a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, Just take your time with this. Now, the brush that I'm using for this part is an angle brush, but it is not part of the Narrative Cosmetics pack. I like to work left and right as I do these designs so I don't move anything off center. So just continue to do this until you get the shapes that you like. I also carry this all the way down to the triangles that I put down at the very bottom of this feathered collar. As you see, I will go through and actually clean those up with a little bit more finesse, a little bit more shape of a feather instead of the triangles. Try not to go for perfection in this design. I think it's some of the imperfections that really sell this look, because when those imperfections come into play, this is how you're going to create more shadow and more contrast in it. And so, keeping with the red paint, I go in and I create shadows in anything that has a gap, and also the feathers at the top of each layer. So you can see that any feather that layers over another at the very top of the feather up underneath it will cast a shadow downward, and I carry this casting shadow downward in the very bottom of this collar. I go in with the yellow paint and add a little bit of wispy coloring for small details. As you see, this Narrative Cosmetics comes with a guide as to what each of their brushes do, and instead of tapping with my finger, I wanted to use a brush that is supposed to mimic and replace the tapping of the finger, because let's face it, you can get some stains all over the hands, and I just prefer to go in with my finger and tap color to get that harsh line to go away. And you can see here I stamp in with this brush the yellow over this look into the design on the eyes. And I really do like this brush because it does do the same thing that tapping the finger does. I was highly impressed that once I tapped with paint that I didn't continue to push that paint past the tip of the brush. So wherever you pick up color in these brushes, that's exactly where the paint stays. And again, I am very impressed with my first use of these brushes. And again, I will do another look and test them against more products. But here I go in with a angle brush again, and I create small little details into these feathers. I am using a set of eyelashes today that are shaped as feathers. They're red and they have little bitty dots in them. So I carry this look throughout every other look for highlights in these feathers to really make them pop against the orange. At the very top of these flames, I take some Mehron gold powder and mix it and tap that color and bleed it into the very tips of the flames. And I also carry a little bit of this gold around the feathers into the neck. Time to pick a lipstick, and I chose to go with a cream based lipstick from ColourPop called K-Pop. This is a bright orange. And with my gold paints, I go back in and I carry a little bit of gold along the bottom lip into the center, more into the center, and fray that out like a fire would go. And I do the same thing to the top lip up into the Cupid's bow area, concentrating this gold in the center, in my idea and in my head, flaming it out. Popping on those eyelashes and putting on my red wig for that fiery phoenix look. Here is the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. If you're going to be using a big bold look with paints, or if you're just going to use the contour portion, please tag me in your looks. I would love to see what you guys come up with. And if you'd like to see sneak peeks, behind the scenes footage, or vote on my next look, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Those links are below. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know if I'm doing a good job. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.